Today, I'm excited to welcome Carrie Hawthorne. She is on the board of directors at Moby Kit Rescue, and she also serves as a foster. So we're super excited to have her here today. Miss
I'm
Carrie,
excited to be
tell
here.
me about Moby Kit Rescue.
Well, good morning, and thank you so much for having me. I can talk about MobyKit to anyone and everyone who's interested. So I really appreciate you doing these podcasts and bringing some education to the world of animal rescue. It's something that we are always striving to do. So thank you so much.
Of course, of
Um,
course.
so we are a small but mighty 100% volunteer run rescue based out of Fall River. And we are also 100% foster based. So that means we don't necessarily have a rescue where animals are kept where, your kind of typical rescue. Our animals are out at foster homes. So, for example, right now I'm sitting in my home in Fairhaven and I have a set of fosters that I did bring with me if you want me to bring them out at the end. Um, and so, what I think is great about that is those animals are able to really be socialized and acclimated to home living before they even get home. When people are meeting them, they're much more comfortable. They're not coming out of a cage. They're not scared. They're kind of comfortable. And it kind of reduces our costs quite a bit. And our time, our volunteers can just have the animals in their homes. We don't have to spend a lot of time going to and from the rescue and that sort of thing.
Mhm.
So we have three general programs, I would say, with MobyKit Rescue. Um, the one that we're in full swing with right now, being springtime, is our TNR, which is trap, neuter, release. And we actually had 24 feral cats today go get spayed and neutered through that program. So our team works specifically with homeowners in the city of Fall River who have a feral population on their property. So unfortunately, a lot of times, different from dogs, we just have a lot of cats that end up being released out into the wild for a variety of reasons. And most of the times they're not fixed. And so if you've ever seen those charts where it's like two cats equal, like hundreds of cats by the end
Mhm.
of
Mhm.
a few years, they just can continue to reproduce. And so our goal is to get out there, get them spayed and neutered, work with those families that are feeding a colony of ferals. And so we are able to go out this time of year, we trap them, bring them in to be fixed, and then we do a little notch on their ears. If they are truly feral and they cannot live in a home, we will send them back to their colonies to live out their healthy lives. They do get their shots and their flea and tick and all that good stuff. If they are friendly in any way, we will do a quick search with the animal control officer to make sure they're not missing. We
Mhm.
do want to make sure they could be reunited if possible. And then if we don't find an owner, they're not microchipped, we will obviously do our best to find them a great home to live in, which does occasionally happen. And then occasionally, in the case of my crew that I have right now, we will have a mom with babies. And so we will trap the mom, collect the babies, and raise the babies with mom. So right now, I'm in a situation where I actually have a feral mom living with me. She's raising her babies until they're old enough to be weaned. And then
Mhm.
she will also be spayed and sent along to live out her life without reproducing any longer. And
Right.
then the babies are socialized because they've been with me since they were just a couple weeks old, and they'll be adopted out. So we have our
Mhm.
trap, neuter, release program. We also, one of the programs that's near and dear to my heart is Project SNP. So we have a low cost spay and neuter program where folks can sign up for $150. They can get their cat the surgery to be fixed. They get microchipped. They get all of their rabies and distemper shots, flea and tick medication. Um, and it's just a really great opportunity to help families. We have a lot of families in the South Coast who just can't afford
Mhm.
that care. A lot of times, my biggest, I also run the social media for MobyKit, and a lot of times people will balk at, the cost of adopting a kitten from us, or um, they'll say, oh, well, I got a free cat on Facebook, right? We hear that a lot. And
Mhm.
there's no such thing as a free cat. People have unspayed, unneutered animals. They are constantly breeding in their homes. And then what happens is they're giving them away for free. They go to a new home. Those kittens are not spayed and neutered.
Mhm.
And so it's just this perpetual cycle. And so we also work really closely with families who might be having litter is happening, we'll help them get those cats spayed and neutered. We will adopt out the kittens and stop that cycle from continuing on any further.
How many families do you allow to participate in that low cost spay? And I mean, presumably it's, the first 25, or I mean, it's not, is it just one
So
day? Is it a maximum number of families? How does that
So
work?
the way Project SNP works, we work really closely with a really great veterinarian. And so about once a month, we'll offer a clinic. We have a wait list where people can sign up on our website to join the wait list. We'll send out an email. Sometimes we have 10 spots, sometimes we have 5 spots, sometimes we have 20 spots. And so people will, it's a first come, first serve, they'll grab their spot. And then they'll be taken off the wait list and new people can be joined. And I am so sorry I did not pull up numbers, which was something I should have done. We do
No
have
worries, no worries.
our full all of our information on our website, which is mobyKitRescue.org. But I know in 2024 we had over 400 cats that were fixed through us, whether that be feral, Project SNP, or um, otherwise. So
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
and then I will say our third program that we do work with is we do offer when we have space in our foster homes and the ability to, we do have a surrender program where unfortunately a lot of times families are just in a situation due to housing or budgets where they can't keep their beloved pets. And so we do have a form online where you can submit to surrender. And like I said, if we have the availability of a foster home at that time, we will help rehome a lot of great cats. I've had some really great cats come through my program, my foster home, for example, who were living with an elderly person who might have dementia or need to move into a nursing home, and the family can't commit to the cat.
Hmm.
And so they've come to live with me through their transition, and now they're living beautiful lives in their new home. So those are kind of the three main ways that we
Hmm.
um, do our work. Our work is completely, like I said, volunteer and donation run. And then, of course, a little bit of money comes through our adoption fees. Project SNP is truly a no, we don't make money, we don't lose money. It's just kind
Hmm.
of an in and out situation.
Yeah, it's more of a
Um,
control, like let's just try to control the population type
yeah,
of
we're not
service.
out here trying to raise money. We do run a few fundraisers throughout the year that just kind of help us stay afloat.
Hmm. Hmm. How did you become part of Moby Kit Rescue? How
Yeah,
did you
so
find them? And
my background, I'm an environmental educator who's worked in zoos with animals for a long time. So I do have just kind of a long running passion for working with animals. And during COVID, everyone was in quarantine. I have a good friend who runs an animal shelter near here who was in a situation where he couldn't have volunteers coming in because of the COVID quarantine, but he had cats that needed to be socialized. Specifically, there was a breeder who had bred a bunch of Bengal kittens, and Bengal kittens just, they're a little closer to wild than domestic, and they
Mhm.
were stuck in the shelter, not being socialized. He was really worried about their ability to get adopted out. I had a daughter at the time who was in third grade who was stuck at home and who also loves animals. We have the ability, so in my home, we have a finished attic with a door that closes off from our home pets,
Mhm.
where we have, it's my home office, so we have a couch, we have it's also our extra bedroom, so it's a comfortable place, TV, all the good things. And so I offered to bring them in as kind of a project for my daughter, so she would spend time up here doing her schoolwork with them. And through that process, her music teacher actually was one of the founding members of Moby Kit Rescue. She said, "Oh, if you're enjoying that, we are always looking for foster homes." And so it was kind of a natural transition into their kind of system of fostering. And it's been really, we've had over, I haven't done the count recently, but over 60 cats in the last 3 years come through our home.
Oh wow. Oh wow.
And I keep in touch with a lot of the adopters. We have just, it's really great for my daughter. She gets to help socialize them. It's not that much work at the end of the day. Sometimes it can be really heartbreaking. We have lost some due to illnesses. A lot of times the kittens come in sick. Um, but for the most part, it's a very joyful, wonderful way to give back, to be able to work with the animals and to see them go off to living homes. We've only had one foster fail, I'm proud to say, who did not leave. So
Yeah, it's
um,
interesting that you say that. I'm glad that we can talk a bit about, dare I say, foster fails, because I follow a number of rescues online. And one of the things I see people say in terms of comments is, oh, I could never foster. I'd have 3,000 animals, or it would be so difficult for me to send that animal off to its forever home. But I think the thing that, and what you just illustrated is that, especially in foster-based rescues, if there are no fosters, the rescues they don't function.
yeah.
And so then you have animals that might be, they either die in the wild, or, there's clearly an overbreeding population as far as cats go,
Hmm.
and or they die in shelters because no one, they don't get socialized and that kind of thing. So it's incredibly important work that fosters are doing, and I'm glad that you have found it to be very rewarding.
Yeah.
And you've only
Yeah.
you've only managed to keep one of them, which is
Only, and I will say that was my husband was the foster fill in that case. So, um, but he was a very sick cat. He ended up having to have an enucleation and have one of his eyes removed. He was with us for a very long time. He was very sick. And sometimes when you're just pouring that much care into a creature, it's going to happen. It will always happen. But we do have a very strict policy in our house. It's a one cat to human ratio. So we've just kind of set a rule. And I will say, there's never going to be enough homes for all of the homeless cats and dogs that are out there. So we have to do everything we can. Everyone
Mhm.
loves a kitten, and that's great. But like, there's never going to be enough adopters out there to take
Mhm.
in everything that's happening. And so I just always look at it as I need to clear this space out for the next crew. And
Mhm.
like I said, to meet, I mean, the families that we've met who have taken in these cats, I feel so good that they have moved on to these wonderful homes where, kids who are getting their first cats for the first time, or an
Mhm.
elderly man who's lonely and he needs a cat and he's able to take in, an adult cat. Those that's where they're meant to be. I really do. Every time they meet their person, and it becomes that kind of like, yeah, they were meant to be with them. It's
Mhm.
beautiful.
So it sounds like most of the cats that you're getting, because I used to volunteer at a rescue
Mhm.
pre-COVID, and then all the rules changed, as you know,
Yeah.
with facilities and things like that. But um, there's a huge problem, it seems like, with people just dumping boxes of kittens. That At least that rescue in Dartmouth was where they would get, the animal control officer would go out because somebody would report, hey, there's a bunch of kittens, behind the
Hmm.
mall, or which is just, it's awful to even think about the fact that somebody just threw a box out of the back seat of a car. Um, but Moby Kit, where are most of your cats coming from that you bring into your foster system? Is it that scenario, or is it something else? Or
Yeah, so I mean, I just want to first say one of our tenets at Moby Kit is we never come from a place of judgment. People have situations that don't know all the resources that they have, which is part of why I'm so grateful that you're doing this and working through educating people, because there are options if you can't keep your cats, or if you're in a situation where you're just continuously having cats having kittens, and it's the cycle. And a lot of times we've worked with some very extreme hoarding cases where we've
Mhm.
taken dozens of cats out of a home that started with three, and by year three you've got you know 20, 30, 40 cats in your house.
Mhm.
It can get out of control very quickly, and we've always been able to work with folks to they really do want the best at the end of the day for their pets. I think a lot of times people, when I talk to people, a lot of times they think, like, it's okay, like you can't keep your cat, it goes outside. um Whereas like a dog roaming the streets would be more shocking, and we would try and figure out, how did it get there, who put it there, why is it being abandoned, right?
Mhm.
Where cats, I find it's a little less, there's a little less awareness to that maybe.
Interesting.
And
Okay.
again, they are smaller, and they can just kind of like fit into little cubbies in places and reproduce, and then you have a colony. So I would say, right, so it's very seasonal. So in the winter, when we're not doing trap neuter release, and um, we kind of slow things down on that end, and we really focus on Project Snip and getting lots of owned cats through their fixings. We do tend to take in more surrenders during those times. We're able to kind of work through our surrender list. And then come this time of year, it's very much what we would call kitten season. We are
Mhm.
out doing trap, neuter, release. Sometimes those kittens have already been born and they are here, and we are going to do everything we can to keep them healthy and get them out to homes. And then, like I said, occasionally we'll work with families who are having those litters and, kind of work to allow them to keep their cats, but not continue to have litters.
Mhm. What do you think for people that may be considering adopting a cat that have never owned a cat before?
Yeah.
First of all, I always applaud people that go to rescues and shelters, but before going to a pet store, for a variety of reasons, and that's a whole different podcast. But for those, you've been doing this for quite some time. What do you wish people knew about cats, or what do you think they should consider before adopting a cat?
Sure. I've got so many answers to this question, so I'll give you my top two, I guess. Um, my first thing, one of the things that we really promote with Moby Kit Rescue, if we do have litters of kittens, we really do everything in our power to adopt them out in pairs. There's a perception that cats tend to be solitary creatures, or it's okay, to have one kitten, which in some cases is totally fine. But often, when you only take one kitten, you end up with some behavioral things. They need their playmates, they need a partner, they need that company, especially if you're going to work every day. Leaving a baby animal home alone is just not great. And then they're able to kind of be bonded and go through their lives that way. If you get a
Mhm.
kitten and then you realize a year in, oh, it's lonely, it doesn't, I'm not home enough, it needs a play partner. By that point, bringing in a new cat that they're not connected to, at that point, yeah, it could be hard to, kind of bridge the gap and have them be best buddies sometimes. So, just
Mhm.
like anything else, they have their own personalities, they have their own quirks, and it's really, if you're thinking you can handle two cats and you want to get a kitten, just get two from the same litter right from the start. I've had nothing but success with that option. And I have seen it occasionally where a single kitten goes home and it just ends up becoming a little bit of a behavioral issue. The other thing I will say is, like I mentioned before, I have so many people in my just personal life who talk about, oh, I got a free kitten off Facebook Marketplace. Um, or not Marketplace, but just, Facebook, or,
Mhm.
my friend
Mhm.
had kittens and I'm going to take one of them, or two of them, or whatever. And certainly when I was younger, that's how I got my cat. I went to someone's house and I took one of, a couple cats. Um, I just cannot stress enough, there's no such thing as a free cat. I have had situations where people got a free animal and thousands of dollars later they're dealing with a very sick kitten. Kittens come with a lot of intestinal issues. They need to be dewormed, they need to be cared for. I've never had a group of kittens come through that didn't need some eye medicine or some kind of help to kind of, their immune systems are really weak when they're young. And so Moby Kit pours a lot of money into these kittens to make sure that they're healthy and robust by the time they make it to their adoptive home. Then you add in the cost of spaying and neuter them, which for us, we can do that for you for $150. But if you go to your vet, it could be hundreds of dollars to do
Mhm.
that. And so, your free kitten off of Facebook suddenly becomes at least $1,000 when you've had to take it to the vet because it had diarrhea, it had an upper respiratory infection, you had to pay for the meds, you had to, they're disgusting. They are gross. I can't stress it enough. They need that time to kind of get through that process. And, or you can grab a beautiful, well socialized, healthy, fixed cat from us who's only, a couple months old. And it's only $250 as an
Mhm.
adoption fee for a kitten. So, yeah, those are kind of my two things that I'm just always reiterating to people.
Mhm.
And then I will just say, for folks who maybe you can't have a cat or you love cats, please follow us on social media, get to know us. We run a lot of fun fundraisers like Super Bowl squares and bingo nights, and those are the things that keep our rescue able to do things like Project Snip and really getting to the root cause of why we have so many homeless cats.
Mhm.
And so, and I post lots of cute kitten pictures and things like that. So, sometimes just supporting a fundraiser when you can, even if it's $5, can go a long way. And it really, our volunteers work really hard. We have a lot of really tough situations that we're dealing with.
Mhm.
It's a cruel world sometimes, and just knowing we have support, we have people liking our posts, we have people coming to our events.
Mhm.
It just means a lot to the volunteers, and it kind of lifts our sails when we're having bad days. So I will say that it's always a great option.
How many how big is your organization? How many fosters? How many people do you have doing this work that you're doing?
That's a really great question that I like I said, I should have done my research more. I'm really bad with numbers. I know right now we keep our foster, I will say we keep our foster homes small. We keep our rescue small. We want to focus on quality over quantity. And so I would, less than a dozen foster homes right now. Our board is there's three of us on the board, and then we do have a board of directors who's about eight or nine. So we do keep our crew tight. We don't want to get to the point where we're in over our heads. Again, we are fully donation funded, so we can only do what we can do. And we would
Mhm.
rather, save the cats that we can and do the surgeries that we can and stick around for a really long time than have like these really big years and then fizzle out because we're just all burnt out. All of
Right.
us have full-time jobs, we have families. Um, and so it's just important that we kind of keep ourselves focused. So please, we do have a foster application online. We are always looking for really great fosters, but again, we keep it, we can't have hundreds of homes because we need
Right.
to know what's happening in every home.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. And to your point, I mean, if you're working a full-time job, as I'm sure, many people that help your organization do, and you got 200 foster homes, it becomes almost impossible to really
Yeah,
manage and make sure that all 200 of those foster homes, for example, would be doing the level and the quality of fostering that you really want to maintain, which I think is great. I also appreciate the fact that you brought up your adoption fee. $250 for an adoption fee is really just such an insignificant amount of money when you think about all that goes into making sure that those kittens and even I'm sure cats, the adult cats, making sure that they're well before they go to a home. I see a lot of people online um, really sometimes scoff at adoption fees across the board. I can't believe these
yeah,
rescues charge so much money. And so I'm so glad that you mentioned that about all the work that you're doing. And people, I think, underestimate the expense in terms of spaying, neutering, vet care, deworming, things like that.
yeah,
And that's just basics. To your point, that doesn't include, God forbid, if they get sick, and now it's
yes.
extra trips, to the vet. So I'm so glad that you mentioned that.
Yeah, we do get some comments like that. And, we do not make money off of our adoptions. The amount of work that goes into and medication and like you said, it's just, we just want, if we had a lower cost, we do want to make sure people can afford their pets. So if you
Mhm.
have, again, a free cat, you know, are you going to be able to care for them throughout their lives? Have you really thought through and are you committed to, this? It is a commitment and it's a long
Mhm.
commitment.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I agree. And indoor cats, I mean, they can live on 20 plus years if
Yes.
assuming that they're healthy and they're really well cared for. So when you say it's a commitment, it
Hmm.
100% is a commitment, especially if you get, if you get a cat, it's a kitten. If you get an older cat, obviously it's a little bit less time, but I mean, it's still the commitment nonetheless. So
100%.
yeah, yeah.
Do you have time? I do have some kittens here.
Oh, yes.
Okay. So, like I said, I have a set right now. I have four babies with their mom. Let me get them. They're, they finally fell asleep. So I have two black cats and two tuxedos.
Oh my
Mhm.
goodness.
So they're about 4 weeks old. These two have extra claws, so they're polydactyl.
They are
Um,
so stinking cute.
and they are just starting to walk. I think they're going to start weaning here this week. They're starting to sniff food and think about it. And I think mom will be
Mhm.
glad because they're getting big.
They're beautiful. Now, how
Um,
old are they?
these guys are about 4 weeks old.
Okay.
And like I said, this crew, we got a call from someone who noticed in their yard they had mom with a few babies that were poking out, and they said, "Oh no." don't know what happened, but I suddenly have a cat with babies in my yard, and we were able to collect all the babies and use them to lure mom to come get trapped as well. And so they're just fine. Luckily, we got them early enough. They themselves are not feral. If you get kittens that are too big, it takes a lot to socialize them because they're definitely a little nervous. But these guys are going to do just fine. They're going to be great.
I love that little white spot on his nose.
I
Oh,
know,
they're
this is so
precious.
cute.
They are precious.
Yep. Yeah, like I said, kittens are cute, but they're gross.
I had someone tell me, oh my goodness, look at those little feet. I can't. The paws, I can't. I had a volunteer at another rescue that I was talking with tell me that you're the first one that said they're gross, which I think is important. That's a good heads up. But she said they're little demons. I mean, they get into if you
Yes.
really have to keep a close eye on
Yeah,
kittens
well,
because
they're
they get
gross when
into
they're babies, and then as they become a teenager, that kind of like right before they go home is when they start to like just tear it up. And so I always say, no, I'm ready for them to go. This is great. Also think about, you're cleaning a litter box. I've had up to litters of 7 kittens. So at some point you're like, nope, great. Like they, by all means, I've been cleaning litter box for 7 and feeding 7 and socializing 7. They're ready to go home.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
ready for my next crew.
Yeah. And during my time as a volunteer at the Humane Society in Dartmouth, I used to clean I would clean the cat pens, and
Yeah.
you'd go in, there'd be 2, 3 litter boxes because they'd have, I don't know, 5, 6 cats in a room sometimes during kitten season because
Mhm.
they're logistically trying to figure out where to put all these cats.
Yep.
And ooh, sometimes I would go in there and I'd think, oh my gosh, for such a little backside. I mean,
Yeah.
it's those little boxes are something else, I'll tell you. But
Yeah.
yeah,
And I do want to just mention, the rescue community in general has just been really great. We do work really closely with all of the rescues in the South Coast and the animal control officers. A lot of times we'll get calls from them like, hey, we have a cat that really needs to be in a foster home, not at the shelter. They need socialization. We can help work with them. A lot of times, if we're doing our trap, neuter, release and we just have, you know, 6 litters that we're just, we don't have the fosters for, they're able to take more socialized or kittens who are easy to get through the shelter system.
mhm,
And so
mhm.
it's been really great to be able to, and then just the vets that we work with who offer us discounts and work with us to keep these animals healthy and get them their surgeries has been really great to see. It's such a community.
That's awesome because in the sort of on the national rescue level, or even maybe not the rescues that are a little bit bigger than the rescue that you're working for. Sometimes you see a little bit of cattiness among the rescues. They're all fighting over donations and they're all fighting for the spotlight. And I think it's unfortunate because at the end of the day, you're just trying to save lives really and make sure
Yeah.
that these animals go to great homes. So I absolutely applaud the work that you're doing. I think it's wonderful that there is a collaboration. I've heard that from a couple of folks so far, and I just think it's great that you're all connecting in that way. How tell us again how folks can find you if they want to foster, adopt, or
Sure.
donate.
So
How do they
our
find
our
you?
website is mobykitrescue.org. You can just Google us, find us. We are on Facebook and Instagram as well. Just if you just search for us, you'll find us there. All the information about all the programs I've mentioned today are on our website, so you can get added to our Project SNP waitlist. You can find out more information about how to volunteer and get involved. There's also a donation button you can click. I will also say there's been some great I, I'm the treasurer of the organization as well, and we do have a few programs through folks' employers where, like larger employers will have the opportunity for folks to donate through their organizations or their companies. And we've had some great local organizations and companies who their employees have been able to donate to us through them. Through like a program. And so we get kind of regular deposits from those. So even if you maybe work for a big company, we get donations from folks who work at Google in California who used to live here who are aware of us. So just again, there's just so many different ways that you can make even a tiny difference is a big difference to us. So
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you, Carrie, for spending part of your morning with me and
of
getting
course,
the word out about your rescue and more importantly, getting the word out about how folks can help. So any little
Yeah,
bit will go a long way for sure.
absolutely. And like I said, thank you for doing this podcast because the more education we can do, the better. So anything we can do, and like I said, I'll talk about this any day to anybody. So thank you very much.
You are so welcome. I hope you enjoy the rest of the day and we'll connect soon.